Yeah. Is it too crooked?
Yeah, I think it's crooked.
Well, I did hit it when I went like that.
No offense.
You think I should go back up higher? No, I think you can still see the clock, and she's still got that covered. So.
Hi, how's Pearl? How is Pearl? Is she? I already told me.
It's a small town. You didn't know you lived in a small town.
How's she doing better?
I hear it's gonna be a long haul, though.
Wow. Feeling better right now. Right, she went up to emergency, she was doing very good.
What happened?
Don't worry about it.
Really?
No, and they went to St. Mary's emergency on Friday.
Yeah.
But, Dizzy, you know, they sick to her stomach and stuff. It's not, all the tests were fine. Gallbladder test, blood test, everything. They take it back to just took the right before. And, of course, I was sick in the dog Monday. They did come down here, go that night round. I got out of there.
Wow. Wow.
Hasn't been a,
Keep those germs right over there.
hasn't been a good week.
I guess not. All right, 6 o'clock. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, I'll probably leave it to 15 minutes. Jackie, would you close the door?
I'd be
It's
happy
much
to.
warmer in here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, did anybody have a chance to look at the minutes?
I move that the minutes be approved as written.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yeah, okay, I'll go on. As I said, I wasn't here last week, the week before.
Yep. All right, do some motions on the warrant.
I'll make a motion that we approve the payroll warrant number 17 in the amount of $12,296.46.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
And I'll make a motion to pay the accounts payable warrant number 17 in the amount of $183,116.79.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
here.
He's probably stuck it, you know. He got stuck on my road today.
I don't know, he's doing something. I haven't heard from him. Sandy, did you hear from Brad? No, okay, no report. All right, a memo from Deb. I bet you I have that in here in the middle. Something.
In your red one.
Okay, Deb's memo, account balances as of today, checking, $260,438, savings, $1,180, $1,180,756, I haven't seen a number that big in a long time.
Yeah.
Outstanding deposit, that $108,508 for a total of $1,549,702. The two, that does not include the $100,000 in the CDRs. We've received $2,031,070 in tax revenue as of today. The remaining taxes due is $427,127.
Nice.
So she will be she's gonna submit a voucher for the balance of the tax anticipation note to the bank on the next warrant on the 24th. She does not foresee any reason why this isn't gonna be able to happen. On Wednesday, February 26th, Austin Electronics will be here to demo cabling and move the cable box. I've contacted Leanne with the details and will let her know as soon as the system is up and running again. Oh, they're gonna take apart that computer, oh. All right.
And Wednesday's usually the day that she works on Peru, that's why.
All right, she got us, she contacted Bangor Savings and Franklin to get quotes on a loan for a new truck. So, we've got those. And on Tuesday, the 25th, Allison and Deb will be at a Title 30A training for the day. Vera will be covering the clerk's office. So that's that. School board, Constantine went to the first meeting and has already drafted 3 different proposals against policy, because he went through the policy book that the school board uses and has come up with 3 drafts already that he wants to change. Now, will he get voted? I don't know. I think he may talk so smart that some of them might vote with him anyway, because he seems like he knows what he's talking about. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but he's dove right in. Tomorrow night is their budget proposals, at the new budget proposals for next year, so I would advise going so you can hear that, see what they're coming up for numbers, because each school is going to be proposing their requests. So tomorrow night will be a good night to go to the meeting. I think it's at middle school. Let's see. Middle school at 6:30.
Thank you.
Other than that, he really didn't have anything to report right now. He's just waiting to dig right into the budget. That's his big thing, is the budget. So that'll be good to have him over there. And Bill sent me an email and wanted to know how we got Constantine to do it. He said if I didn't give her heartburn, Constantine's going to. So she didn't have heartburn before. So that should be good. Fire chief, I've got no report, nothing new. Sandy, meeting on the 17th is President's Day and office is closed. That's Monday. Huh?
And it's not a warrant week.
No, but we should be doing budget. But Linda either needs to be here, or we're gonna have to make a decision on wages without her, one or the other.
No.
Because we need to move.
She may be back by then though.
Okay, well, just let her know that regardless, if she's not here, we've got to make that decision, so. Okay, so we're gonna do a budget meeting next week on Monday?
I think we talked about that before, I believe.
Every other, I
Yeah.
think now to get it done. So
Yeah.
can you post that it's gonna be a budget meeting, Sandy?
6 o'clock.
Yeah. homestead exemption, oh yeah, homestead exemption requirements no longer being met.
Yeah, it's come to my knowledge that some people that get the homestead exemptions are no longer living at the place that they're getting the homestead exemption. It came up once, but it came up when, I was sending out all the letters for the homestead exemptions. So I just added it to my, queue that I haven't gotten back yet, by the way. But, you know, like, I find out that people have told me that they're no longer living there, like their family members. So, what do we do in that case?
We should draft a letter that should be sent out to everybody. It should say the same thing. And it should advise them what the law states, that the homestead exemption is given only to those whose primary residence is the property that is named on the approval, and ask them for verification of primary residence and to provide proof of residence. I can help you draft a letter to that effect, but you were way too kind as far as I'm concerned in sending them a new application. And as far as I'm concerned, if they moved away, then they're committing fraud. And if it were up to me, I'd say just send it to the attorney, but we don't want to incur legal fees. So the best way to handle it is to send them a letter to ask them to provide, to state the law, to ask them to confirm their residence and proof of residency. And I'll give you, you know, it's gotta be their driver's license, it's electrical bill, rent, whatever it is. And if it's not their primary residence, then they're not entitled. And I think we go back and we look at whether or not they received the exemption in a prior year. And I don't know if we can go back more than 1 year or if we can go back 3 years, but I think we need clarification on that. But I have absolutely no sympathy to anybody who's committing fraud, and I consider that to be fraud.
I know that one person in town, I know it's been a couple of years, they've never had the deed transferred or anything into their name, both their parents are deceased. And there've been some that's living in the home, and there's no doubt they're still getting homestead exemption. But, I mean, the deed's never been transferred, and maybe it has now, and it's been still in his parents' name, they're both deceased. So, I mean, that's neglect, as far as I'm concerned.
The only thing is how do you catch that, other than somebody coming forward and telling you that? How would we know?
We post it on our website and we leave it to citizens who feel that it's unfair
Well, I
for
know-
someone to get an exemption when
know
they're not
how-
entitled, and they
I
come
know
forward
that
and let us
the,
know.
town clerk knew about it.
Huh.
All I can say. Not the previous one knew about it too. All I can say. Maybe it's been taken care of since.
It's not fair to the taxpayers.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not.
that's right.
How I
It's not-
found out was going through the town report, looking at the people that own land, no, they're no longer alive, how can they still own, you know? I just go to the town report and you can figure out a lot of that.
So when it changes hands, it automatically knocks the homestead off, cause it's to the person, not to
Right.
the
That's right.
property.
That's right.
So as
There's
soon as
gonna be a
it
system,
changes,
there's gonna be a system to catch that though, because when my father passed away, the tax bill came still in his name because I hadn't done the deed thing yet, but the homestead exemption was off of it. So they caught that, I
I
didn't.
used to do it all the time
Right.
too.
Okay, so you kept
It's the
that.
same way with the veterans exemptions. If, you know, if whoever gets the veterans exemption passes away, then you have to send the form to the spouse. And I just automatically did it, but if you don't know people in this town, then it's harder to do.
It's one thing to be considerate of a widow or widower. It's something else when it's another individual. I just don't have any. If you're a property owner, you should know, and that's, the law is, whether you know or not, it's your responsibility. So,
I think you're gonna run into the same thing with some people, cause I noticed on some form or something that you guys did, for people at Worthley Pond, you put camp owners are not eligible or something like that.
Yeah.
And I know that there's some people down there that get it because they had called when I was here, indicating that they no longer owned a different property, that was the only property they own now, and they were there more than 6 months of the year, and that was their primary residence now. So I don't know if there's some gray lines there or what the story is either, but I know there's probably some people down there that are getting it that probably shouldn't be. Is there somebody in particular that you guys have had an incident with that you're talking about?
She just had somebody, yeah.
Yeah,
Who's that?
I don't remember the name right off the top of my head.
We just hadn't come across this whole, I just hadn't thought about the issue in general. And how to
Well,
handle
apparently
that.
these names got sent to the state, they're also getting $104 exemption there too, that shouldn't be.
They were mailed 7 for Peru.
We're last on the list anyway. 'Cause
Yeah, we
last
were.
in the name.
Lost 10%.
Alright, so Carol will help you draft a letter, at least we can get them up to the ones we know.
Okay.
Okay. Community concepts, Allison called and asked about our local
Oh.
food pantry and donations to the town offices.
Yeah, it was an interesting phone conversation. They called to say that the state had given, them a lot of money, for diapers, to buy diapers for food pantries and so forth, and they were coming up that they didn't need them in a lot of the towns. I'm thinking, okay.
Can't imagine.
Maybe. But, and I told her where the food pantry was and, explained the church and when they're open and so forth. And she said, well, we were also looking to see if the towns wanted to have it, like to store diapers here. So I said, I'm having the selectmen's meeting this tonight. I'll ask them if they're interested in doing that as part of the general assistance, but
No. Just refer them to the church.
Yeah, well, I don't know why the food pantry wouldn't have those.
yeah, and I don't know why it was like, she was like just stuck on doing it for the towns. Like she only wanted to do it for
Yeah.
like the town halls or something, and it's like, well, a lot of places don't have storage for, boxes of diapers are kind of big.
I don't know what's that doing there.
We're not gonna stock old diapers.
I just figured I'd ask. I told her I'd ask.
Alright, anything else, Sandy?
Yeah, I think that's all my relatives.
More. Alright, assessor, Sandy continues to work with Leanne on abatements and exemptions and other regular assessing work. Yes, that's about all I see all day long coming across my emails,
Yeah.
assessing stuff. Alright, contract for hiring Ryan to the town of Peru, submitted a work detail for your review.
And we talked about not doing the contract and hiring him as the employee.
Okay,
Remember at the last
so is
meeting?
that what we're gonna do, we're
Yeah.
just gonna hire him,
Yeah.
and he's
Right.
going to,
He submitted something, but it's not a voucher, so I don't mind calling him, and I will be nice. But you need to give me his telephone number.
okay, I can do that.
What's the benefit of that, can I ask?
It keeps us in compliance with the suggested procedure that MMA has laid out, and there seems to be considerable, I'd call it confusion. I don't think that it's disagreement, but confusion on the federal and state law with regards to liability insurance of the CEO and the animal control officer. And the recommendation, it's a recommendation, it's not a mandate to the municipalities, that the municipalities hire the individuals and cover them with the municipal liability insurance.
Do they work for other towns as well?
Yes,
So are all the other towns doing the same thing that they work for?
I don't know.
I would just be concerned that if that was the case, and they could get hurt anywhere and say it was in the town of Peru, or anything like that.
Well, that
But
would be
if they
fraud.
did that, then they have to disclose the fact that they're covered by other insurances. And my understanding is that each town would be required to pay a proportionate share. That's how workers' comp was handled when I worked for the Department of Labor and we worked with workers' comp.
But if the other towns aren't covering them,
The only other town that I know that he works for is Dixfield, and I've not called the town manager to find out about that.
I don't think we've covered that in the past, though.
We did for John Evans. He
You
was,
did?
yes, he was covered, we hired him as, and so wasn't Jack. Jack was an employee of the
He
town
was.
and we covered him.
Yep.
Liability insurance was provided for Jack.
Okay,
The only one that we didn't was,
the one in between,
yes,
we don't even know what his name was.
yeah. Yeah, I know
Mr.
what
In
you mean.
Between.
Mr. In Between,
Yeah.
yeah.
He was an interesting dude.
Yeah.
He worked for 4 towns too.
Well, he ended
yeah.
up with cancer, and I don't know how he made out.
Really?
That's what he had, yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know how he made out.
All right, animal control officer, nothing new reported to the select board.
And just would Ryan be a salaried employee?
It's 300, we've offered him $350 a month.
Was that considered a salaried employee or?
It's considered a stipend.
Right, thank you, okay.
Yeah. All right, your committee reports, nothing from the planning board.
Essentially, it's treated the same, but it's considered a stipend.
All right, we get the request for funding from the library. Community Concepts is asking for money. Can you send that letter to Community Concepts and let them know that we don't have donations? And the library will put in our budget.
The library will discuss that in the budget meeting anyway.
Bicentennial flag being sold by Maine Stitching Specialties, are you interested?
No.
No? Okay.
Cost money. We could announce though that when the bicentennial parade is, and it could be on our website too, so that if people are interested, it's in Lewiston, Auburn. It's May 23rd, is that the right date? I think it is. Do you remember?
Did you say it on the
card we just threw away.
I didn't throw anything
Oh,
away.
I did. Hold on. No, it doesn't say. Sorry.
Well, I think I have. No, it's May 16th. And it's going to be going through Lewiston, Auburn, but at this time, there's not a set time for the parade. But it's supposed to be a biggie.
Is this flag something that townspeople would be interested in purchasing to have flying on their personal homes? That we could advertise on the
This is for
website?
the state birthday,
This is the state.
yeah. Not the
I
town.
just didn't know if individual people, if we
Well,
wanted to
you
advertise it
could.
on our
You
website.
could, you could
You're
scan that on
welcome
there,
to,
couldn't you?
you're welcome to have the card and check into it.
Well, Sandy can scan it and put it on the website.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take a picture of it too and
Yeah.
post it.
But they got license plates out, but they're only good for this year.
Yeah, that gets expensive.
And if anybody's interested too, the State of Maine website for the bicentennial is full of information.
Okay.
All right, table from last meeting, application homestead exemption for Todd Veman. Let's see.
found his original.
Okay.
It's right behind the first, the one that he did this year.
Okay.
Yes, thank God for Sandy, cause she said, don't look in the minutes, it didn't go in there.
Yeah, cause it looks like
Alright, here's.
it was just brought here and then that was it. There was no, this is when we got it, it was not date stamped, it was just with a whole bunch of other papers.
Well, somebody was dropping the ball.
Well, you have to remember I played secretary one summer, so.
This was
It
the
might have been me, I don't know.
So are we gonna deal with a homestead exemption approval and then with the abatement request? Is this gonna be sent off to the,
I don't know. What do you
because
want?
it's attached?
Yeah,
It needs to be separate?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
because it should have been on for this year's taxes.
Right.
So it's also for an abatement because the original was from May.
Well, it doesn't matter if it was from May or November. The issue was it submitted prior to
Just Aaron.
April 1 of 2019,
Probably know what he's gonna do.
and it was. So taxes, so taxes could be abated for the prior year.
Yeah.
So do you need one of these abatement papers? Is that what we
He
need?
filled one
What
out.
was
Yes, but it has to go to the
Yeah, it has to go to
assessor for calculation.
Gotcha.
Now, when does he pay his excise tax and all that?
And I think was it for 1920, I think it was 15, not 20,000. Because it's 20,000 for this tax year. Anyway, the assessor will have to take a look at it, because the request for abatement is 23,900, and that's more than a homestead exemption would give him. So it depends on the amount for that tax year. But anyway, I will make a motion. I'll wait.
I think it was 20 on this one.
Yeah,
I think
we'll
it
take a
was,
look at it, and the assessor will be able to calculate it.
Yeah.
That's why we don't do it, because.
Yeah.
We don't need any more of that.
How long they have to do that.
Okay, you
Okay.
two ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I move that the application for homestead property tax exemption filed by Todd Vino for the property located at 74 Old Valley Road, map 12, lot 57E, be approved retroactive for the 2019-20 tax year.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
And I make a motion that the application for abatement of property taxes filed by Todd Vino for tax year 2019-20 be referred to our assessor agent for calculation and review.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
So how is that gonna affect the 104?
I don't know.
I have no idea what's gonna happen with that.
I sent a letter to Leanne asking her, she just hasn't gotten back to me yet, if she knows anything about if there's gonna be an amended list or not, so.
You have on
It
to
should
certain
be.
times you resubmit them too.
You probably gave it to somebody that
There
got
is,
two of
yeah.
them.
Okay, so that's gonna go to Leanne.
wasn't my mistake, you know?
Okay, that's nice.
Are you two ready, or no?
I have a request
Oh, you said no
here.
first. Yep.
I move that the application for abatement of property taxes
Questions on that one?
filed by Carol A. Bernard, DBA Mrs. B's Village Store LLC, located at 120 Main Street, Peru, map and lot number 2618, for tax year 2019, be referred to Peru's agent assessor for review and calculation.
I have a question. We only have two tax brackets in Peru, correct? The pond and not the pond? So the fact that she's asking for this no longer being commercial,
No, there's commercial.
I was gonna say, I believe there's commercial, cause aren't you billed as commercial?
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
But did-
Did you just tell me that?
okay,
That comment was made, but I think, yeah.
Yes, there's
I-
commercial.
Okay, so we need to refer this
Okay.
one too.
there was something that was brought up at another meeting that said there was only pond and not pond.
That's right, I remember that.
Because Blaisdells doesn't get taxed any differently because of them being a commercial. There was some,
They're
They
supposed
do.
to be commercial.
Yeah, they are.
They should be.
Okay.
They do.
They get taxed big on.
Sandy, can you make a note of that to look to see how Blaisdells is being taxed?
Cause at one of these meetings, they
And
said,
DDF too.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yes, I remember
And I
that
was
being.
told that there was no,
Yes, you were
Yeah,
told.
yes, we were, okay.
you were.
Okay, just making sure, cause it's
Yeah.
conflicting at times.
Alright, that's gonna go to the,
was there a second to that?
I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor? Is that all you had, Carol, down there?
Those are the only two
Okay.
things.
Alright, we've got the rest of them.
Yeah, he's special.
Okay, what do you got?
You didn't know how special you do.
oh, I
Okay,
do, I pay.
I'll make a motion to approve the homestead exemption for Jeffrey T. Gurney at 1080 Auburn Road, be approved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Two above that one.
Okay, I'll, make a motion to approve a homestead exemption, applications for Martin. Here we go. Yeah, okay, Martin Casey and Linda Casey, okay. 57 Greenwoods Road. Okay.
Second.
Map 13, lot 7, South 504, there we go.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Who's seconding?
Well,
I did.
yeah, all in favor? Alright, that's that one.
Okay,
Question on
we
this
have
one.
one
right
for Aaron Patno.
there. Aaron Patno, 83 Ridge Road. Do you have to live at that residence for a full year, or does that got to be just your only residence?
What does the application say?
That a permanent resident of the state I have owned a homestead in Maine for the past 12 months.
So full year.
I don't,
So he doesn't qualify.
Correct.
He
doesn't
doesn't qualify.
I don't think so.
I had to wait a year too.
He'll qualify next year. He can submit it now, but it won't be effective until
Right, it won't be
next year.
effective,
Next
right.
year.
Fall.
Right.
Right.
I didn't know if he'd lived there for a year.
No, he hasn't, just bought it.
That's what I thought, because that's when Rachel
Yeah.
lived, right?
Yeah.
That's why I had a question. And it says, and the address on my driver's license, the
Yeah,
legal residence?
He has a note on the back that says he just hasn't had a chance to change everything
Oh,
yet.
okay.
But they've only been there for like a week, cause they're,
So is the motion to deny the exemption?
Well, we
At this
can-
time?
We can do the exemption, but it's not gonna take effect until what, 2021 tax year?
correct?
No.
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 He can't apply
He
till
got
next
a place,
year.
he had to live
He
there
should
a
be
year,
denied.
He got to live there a year again.
Yeah.
Before he
Okay,
can apply for it.
alright, so we're gonna,
If you
alright,
deny one
so we'll
thing,
deny it,
Yeah,
Sandy,
21,
can you send him a
22, yeah.
letter saying why it was denied and tell him to reapply next year?
Before April first.
Well,
Yeah.
That's why he hasn't been there a year.
Alright, make a motion to deny it.
Make a motion that we, deny the homestead exemption, what was his name?
Aaron Pat.
Aaron Patno.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, that's all those.
So we have to make a motion for each of these, is that right?
Is that the supplemental bills that you're looking at, or are you looking at the abatements?
I'm looking at the abatements.
You
Should
have
be in the record.
You have two of them, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep.
77 Parity Road. I don't know why it's such a big abatement there.
All right.
What's the application say?
Huh?
What's the application say as to why he's looking for
I
it?
haven't looked at it.
Oh, Carol's got it, yeah.
I move that the abatement for Beth and Lee Davis in the amount of $129.60, map 11, lot 92A -01 be approved as calculated by our assessing agent.
No, that was not on the agenda. Alright, I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor?
I wasn't gonna sign it till.
Sorry, I missed that one.
Okay, the next
So
one.
are you signing these now?
Mhm.
But the assessor hasn't approved them yet.
Yes, she has.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, for first.
I think I said that it was as approved by the,
Oh, I thought you said as to be approved by the
Well,
assessor.
Carol, there's a note on this that says just sign the paper.
Yeah,
well,
you
we
just
can
have
sign
to
the
sign.
paper
Should we do
and the
both?
form.
Okay, yeah, sign the paper and then I'll pass it
Yeah,
on.
okay.
Why, because the assessor
Yeah.
has already gone back there for a second
Yeah.
time?
Yeah.
How
I
much
asked
was
the-
that in the amount of?
129.60.
Can I ask the date that she submitted for that abatement?
It doesn't say.
It sorry.
About 3 days before you do.
Yeah. Probably 3 days after.
I knew what she was getting.
I did too, that's why I snickered, because I knew exactly what she was looking for.
Well, we'll just
She's
ask on the next one. There's
Well,
2 more to follow.
yeah,
We'll see what the
she's-
dates are on those.
She's supposed to be contacting her, correct?
Due
Yeah.
to the storm, it was
Yeah,
postponed, but she hasn't gotten back yet.
she works on
This
Wednesdays
says
for
that
us,
the
so-
cause of the abatement is that it was priced as a developed lot in error per Parker appraisal, CO 2000, land schedule. That was the cause stated.
Okay.
This one I move that the abatement calculated by our assessor agent for Gerald Levitt, map 19 lot 4A in the 40A in the amount of $405 be approved. And the reason for the abatement is that the homestead exemption should have been applied to the 2019-20 tax year and was not.
Alright, I'll second that.
Any discussion?
All in favor?
Yeah, Debbie said the little slips didn't have to be signed, but the big ones did,
Yeah,
so.
we'll just do them both. That way if she changes her mind, they're done.
We don't have a little slip for, just for,
That's a supplemental.
it's
We
a
just
supplemental
sign it.
tax,
Yeah,
You
it's
should have another.
because it
tax
was,
supplemented,
Don't you have another abatement though?
no,
no,
Oh,
no.
oh, the other
because
one got
that's-
taken off?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Carol, on that last one for Gerald Levitt, you said it was because homestead exemption wasn't applied?
Right.
Yeah.
So the homestead exemption was only $405? Okay.
that's a lot.
That's a lot of money.
The homestead exemption would have been.
Now, what's this tax valued at though?
His,
Yeah, that's,
the portion
That's why
of the
I'm-
taxes would have been $405.
Right. Right.
Okay.
yeah, 'cause-
It's
yeah.
reduced by that
Yeah,
amount.
It's
right, yeah.
That's not with the taxes, that's reduced. All right, I'm not sure how to move this one. I
Wonder
move,
why I sent it down.
huh?
Wonder why I sent it down.
I move that the, supplemented tax for 2019-20 tax year for Karen D. Lark and Todd Stephen Vino, map 12, lot 57A, in the amount of $606.37, be adopted or approved as appropriate.
Is this just because Todd's name wasn't on the original, or what is this?
It says that the value supplemented is $29,944, but the tax supplemented, which is what we're dealing with, is $606.37.
I'm sorry, I just don't get it.
It was undertaxed is what you're saying?
That's how I'm reading this.
Okay, so I'm a little confused, so maybe, you've got a lot 57A and a lot 57E? Am I coming late to the party?
No, I'm.
Those are two different
70.
towns.
He's 57E.
Oh, two
Okay,
different streets.
But I'm on her
Okay.
deed
Oh.
right, I remember that conversation.
Yeah.
at 57A.
This
Okay.
supplement tax
Is on A, so it's got
57A.
nothing to do with the one that we're trying to
Right.
put the,
No.
Right.
okay, it's
Okay.
separate.
57A.
Okay, so this is on just Karen, well, the one that's Karen's property.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're saying it was undertaxed? You've got a lot of documentation there.
Yeah. This looks like the total amount of my tax bill.
So the supplement, I think it'd be $606.37.
For the total tax bill.
I think, yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
not how I'm reading that, I'm reading
No,
that.
It says
that's-
it
supplemental
doesn't
tax.
read that way.
No, that looks to me like it's an additional.
That's a supplemented
A
amount.
supplement is is an extra,
It's
another
an
bill.
addition.
Well, there's something wrong there.
Well, why don't we table this one? All right, I did this here a second, so I'll just move to table this. I move that the assessors agent documentation regarding the tax supplementation for 2019-20 on the property owned by Karen D. Lark and Todd Stephen Vino, map 12, lot 57A, be tabled pending further clarification.
I'll second that, all in favor? So that probably, Karen should probably meet with Leanne.
Oh, I need to, because I'll bring it up after, but, yeah, he needs to too, but,
Okay.
yeah.
Alright, so both, has Leanne given us a day yet when she's,
She hasn't given us a day. She said she was gonna give me one on Wednesday.
okay, so can you get that, because when she comes they need to meet with her. She
Right.
needs, so there's 3 people right there that I know of.
Yeah.
Okay. 4. About 4, okay, so it looks like her day's gonna fill in pretty
Okay.
quickly.
We aren't going by the new valuations or anything.
No, we have no new valuations,
I know, that's
So
like
what does
doubling my
everybody
tax
meet
bill.
for?
Like that now.
because they're questioning things, so they can meet, and talk directly with her.
Okay, so the abatement for Clint is on here,
That's been
we
taken
should
off.
we should table it, if
Okay.
it's on here.
Okay,
I move that the abatement request filed by Clint Bradbury, map 15, lot 44, Auburn Road, be tabled pending further clarification.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Maine Uniform Building and Energy Code changes effective 9/19, town ordinance and application.
So I have the application, have the draft of the application done. We have to leave the fees as they are until an ordinance is passed. It needs, I recommend that this draft go to the planning board for further review. It, instead of being 1 page now, is like 4 pages. I don't know how, if you look at the permit that we had, it was a mess. I mean, I don't know how anybody could even fill it out because it was so tight, single spaced. The information was preempt, the information that needed to be provided or attached to that document by office staff was like in this tiny line underneath the form letter. So it's all been cleaned up and it's readable, but I would like to have the planning board's review. They don't have a meeting scheduled. But if we can get the email addresses for the planning board and have them take a look at it, it's just, what do you think about it? Do you have any recommendations? We'll send it off to our CEO and have him take a look at it. And then make a decision on establishing it as our pending, anyway, pending the ordinance.
Yeah. The
Pending the
title
ordinance.
is no longer building permit, right? Didn't that
It
change?
cannot be a building
Can't
permit.
build a permit.
That's
Okay.
why they've been pulled out of the
Right.
outside file.
They have a different classification.
It can only, yeah, and it's not titled building permit.
No.
It's titled construction and land use permit.
You're right, land use permit.
Construction and land use permit is the new title of it.
Couldn't remember just what it was, so.
You need to get,
Yeah, I'll send it to the planning board and to our CEO, to the board. We don't have an appeals board, so that's not an issue. And the rates will have to stay the same for now. And I'd also like to contact the towns surrounding us regarding their rates. I mean, if we're paying $350 a month for the CEO, charging $15 for an application is crazy, because he's saying that it's gonna take a minimum of an hour to do a site visit, and more than that if he has to address telephone calls and so on. We only have 47 on average, this is for the last 3 years, building permits a year. So however much that is, 4,500 or more a year to pay for 47 permits, to me is pretty outrageous, but that's what the board voted to do. So, I say we utilize his expertise as best we can and can take a look, we have to take a look at it again in June, or the new board will have to do that anyway. And if he doesn't have his certification by then there should be a serious consideration about whether to continue the relationship.
We just don't have any other options. That's where we're at.
He's not certified.
No,
He's in the process of getting certified. We just don't have anybody else. We've gotta have somebody.
well, between now and June, there's time, and if he's interested, he's certainly welcome to apply. Brian is certainly welcome to apply, along with anybody else who might be interested.
I suppose the only place it's been advertised is the website.
47.
That's like not very many.
I know. That's my
That's
opinion.
why she
Yeah, I
said
know,
you
but
can't
if we
justify
had-
paying him that
Yeah,
much.
I totally agree with you. Totally agree. A lot of money to pay somebody for that.
And now that with the town, and now that we have, the board has voted not to adopt the MUBEC statutes or requirements, the planning board could do the reviews and the site visits.
But does the CO still have to sign off on shoreline though, right?
Yes, but on shoreline, we only had 7 last year.
But that's still 7 we don't have somebody to cover. That's the thing. I mean,
Well-
what do you do with those 7?
Well, the state has a list of certified CEOs, and if we had to pay $200 times 7, that's still a lot less than $4,500. I'm raising it because it doesn't have to be dealt with till June, but we're in the process of looking at the budget, and I think that it needs to be discussed further.
I think maybe if we only have a few shoreline a year, we probably could get one of them around here, when the code enforcement officer come and look at it for us, I think you might be able to.
Yeah, I know you weren't here when we talked about it earlier, Larry, but and part of the issue and the reason the board, and I think you were here when we voted on it,
Yeah,
was
we voted.
because the junkyards are an issue too.
Mhm.
And the junkyards aren't dealt with by the planning board, they would have to be dealt with by our CEO, certified or not. The problem is that an individual who's not certified can't represent us in court. And we would have to bring our attorney in to do that, and we're already paying, as they say, $4,500. Well, in Ryan's case, we're not, it's half of that, because we're paying from January to June. Nevertheless, $350 a month, we have his report for January, and for January, there were no visits and no mileage. Although he did say that he's starting to field calls because people are looking to build, especially around the water, camps, and that they're waiting for the new building permit to be done. So that's $350 for January when there was no activity.
Does he, ask a question, does he submit a bill or his report or whatever it is that says who he fielded these calls to, and
No.
You should.
I think that it's not just that one that should be more accurate, but I think that the clerk, instead of her just putting every day 10 hours or something like this, she should put down, I work 8 to 5 or whatever. This stuff of just putting 40 hours or salaried or whatever is, that's how we got, as far as I'm concerned, that's how we got stuck paying big bucks for vacation time that supposedly wasn't used.
We're in the process of getting clarification on some of these issues.
Sorry. Is there a reason that the fee cannot be increased enough? That if we get an average of 47 a year, that, why can it not be $100 fee?
It has to go to ordinance, it's an ordinance, and so it has to go to the public for vote. And the last time that it went to the public for a vote, it was voted down.
That's why, go ahead, but that's why she said we're gonna check with the other towns.
Who
to
do
see-
we need to get this written to get it on the vote for June? I
Me.
kinda, thank you.
I'm in the process of doing the research and writing it.
Okay.
Jackie, it doesn't get done overnight, and I don't do just town business.
Oh, I understand that, but are we looking at increasing the fee
Yeah, that's
to
what she-
like
that's why-
$100 a fee?
That's why she
$100
said
a
she was
permit?
gonna contact the other towns to see what they charge for permits. That's
I
why.
don't know that matters based on our average. If we're getting an average of 47 and we need to cover $4,500 on average,
It's just feedback.
sorry. Yeah, I may not be saying it right. I just think
We
it
understand what you're saying.
logically makes sense that those that are using that service fund that service.
Jackie, I've been arguing, this is going on my 4th year,
And I'm new.
that it would be a user fee. In other words, it should be proportionate to how much it costs this town to hire a CEO to do the work related to a
Amen.
building permit. And that was the justification for putting out the increased fees, which were voted down by the citizens of Peru.
Well, that was foolish of our citizens, in my
I
opinion.
thought that she went by square footage of the structure that you were building.
It does, but that can be adjusted per square foot based
The price
on
per
the
square
price that we determine it to be appropriate to be.
Okay, does the permit also state on it, I don't recall that it ever did, but maybe it should, on it something about if the
No,
CEO has to make more
No.
than 3 trips to your property,
No.
then you will be
no,
billed accordingly?
no. That would be reasonable, wouldn't it? Yes.
Well, because some people don't seem to give a crap how many times the CEO has to go there.
No kidding.
No, I'm not kidding.
Hey, I agree. This is what it looks like.
We need to get it fixed.
She's working on it.
Can,
I heard that.
Mike
Go
didn't.
ahead.
Do we have to pay the CEO on a monthly
Yep.
stipend?
Yep.
There's no
We
way
voted
can-
to do that.
Yeah.
He wouldn't take it any other
No.
way. That's the only way he would take the job.
We asked, I mean, when I came in, I'm sure he thinks I'm a real,
A real Kathy, that's all right.
that he thinks that I'm really difficult to work with, because when I came in, I said, look, I think that we should pay you per permit. And he said, no. I
Because we
think
make more
I-
money this way.
Well, yeah, I don't know, that's not a big history, but.
But I asked that question, he was sitting right there, I'm sure he thought that he was not happy that I was back from my leave.
And we had discussed that when he was here the
Yeah.
first time. We had asked him that also.
I think because on Dixfield pays $650 a month.
Right.
But if he-
Yeah, but they
if he
have
has-
5,000 people and we have 1,500.
If he has to go 5
Oh,
times or 6
500
times, he's only getting the
That's right.
300 and
That's right.
That's why the user should pay after X number of visits.
What would cause them to go more times? What-
Yeah,
what
Because
was
the
deal
people
with that?
keep trying to get away with doing something that they aren't supposed to,
Oh, okay, I see.
or they make changes in their permit.
Actually, the CEO, as far as I'm concerned, to make 2 trips. One time to look at it initially, what they can do, what they can't do. Then after the job is done, go down and look at it, and if there's any violations, they have to fix it.
Well, I would absolutely, if Carol, if you're drafting that form, it absolutely could be something about change orders on it, you know, the cost of change orders is what I'm saying,
On with it.
you know what I mean?
Okay.
Larry? Just-
And now that you have agreed to pay him monthly and pay him as an employee, we're having to pay social security and stuff like that on top of that as
It
well, right?
comes out of the 350. Oh yes, our match, 7.6 or whatever it is.
Yeah, so in essence, he's making more than 350.
Yeah, that's pretty good, that's a pretty good gig,
Get certified?
maybe.
You don't even have to be certified.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like you have to be.
I've got somebody I'm gonna ask.
Like yeah, you do. You have to be working on it, and you have to have your certification within so many months of appointment.
How long has he been working for Dixie?
I don't know.
Been there for a while. Definitely more than a year.
I don't know, but if he's not certified by June, I don't recommend that this town continue its relationship with him.
Happy dreams. All right, consideration of draft marijuana ordinances. That's Carol too. Do we need an ordinance?
What I've done is, there was a question last time, I think. These draft ordinances are ready to go to the ordinance committee, if that's the pleasure of the board, and that was my sense of it. I looked up the MMA ordinance procedure, and there has to be a posting of ordinances to be presented at the June election 30 days prior to the election. And prior to the posting, there has to be a public reading of the ordinances, and there has to be a notice of that meeting 7 days prior to the meeting. So, if we look at the election scheduled for the 9th of June, the 30 days would be, well, you can figure it out too, but it would be on or about the week of May 4th. So the notice actually, first of all, the ordinance committee should have a meeting to make a recommendation of whether to approve it or not to the voters, although that's not a requirement in statute. It is the way it's been done in the past here in this town. And then once the ordinance committee has had a chance to look at it, make any recommended changes, it needs to come back to the board for formal recommendation to the voters. Then there needs to be a meeting scheduled for the reading of the ordinances, and then it would be posted 30 days prior to the election. So,
We're running out of time.
Yeah.
so in April. So the we're looking at April as being the date for when the ordinances really need to be reviewed and considered with recommended changes by the ordinance committee, so that any changes can be brought to the board and so on and so forth and so on. So that's what then that's in the MMA manual, that's not the statute. The statute has different timelines and hearing requirements depending on the type of ordinance being presented to the citizens. The marijuana ordinances are not one of the special requirements, nor would the ordinance on the permit, on the building and construction ordinance doesn't have to go to the state. Some of the ordinances have to go to the state for review before they can even be presented to the citizens. So we have to look at that. And I'm going to be recommending that the prohibition, the policy prohibiting the use of tobacco and marijuana on municipal properties be presented as an ordinance and not simply as a policy.
Could we add inside municipal vehicles as well?
It's in there. I've already put it in there.
I saw that, so.
Oh.
I just wanted that to be stated out loud.
I already put it in there.
So is it a state law that every town has a marijuana ordinance?
It is highly suggested.
The statute says that if a town opts into allowing wholesale and retail marijuana establishments, marijuana social clubs, the processing and growing of marijuana in their towns, that there has to be an ordinance. It does, the statutes, neither the medical marijuana statute, which is separate from the adult use marijuana statute. You're keeping me straight on this, right?
Yep.
Okay. Neither one of those statutes require an ordinance unless the town approves those functions or facilities within the town, but it is strongly recommended by the state that towns adopt a policy either way. Not a policy, an ordinance.
So what is our ordinance?
It prohibits it. It prohibits it all.
Everything.
Everything.
You mean as far as commercial use and?
No, everything.
Growing,
Growing,
selling,
everything.
distribution, all, everything.
Even converting to
Making
Either-
stuff like
either-
oil
or
and
other-
sod
other
and everything
different
like
things.
that. Every
It
person
covers, it's
growing
pretty well written, it's
No,
covered,
it
it
can't do
covers.
that. It can't prohibit personal growing or use.
Unless,
Okay.
What if
unless
it's grandfather?
you cannot,
It's not grandfathered.
you cannot,
Why? You have personal
you
interest.
can't grow for personal
I don't
use.
mean myself, but I mean, what if somebody
You
is doing
cannot
it
grow-
commercially?
You cannot grow personal use on the same site or property as commercial.
That's right.
Okay, so what if somebody in town is already doing it commercially? Are they grandfathered?
No.
No.
There's no grandfathering clause in either of the laws.
Yeah, medical marijuana too?
No, there's no grandfathering.
We
Well,
gotta
you
do
can
it.
count this one.
Medical, you gotta understand, medical marijuana under the state guidelines is separate
Mhm.
Right.
than
Adult.
the uses that are being presented in this ordinance.
There's a copy of this if you wanna look at it.
I got it.
But not even medical or anything. Yeah.
Huh? Hey, I'm just,
You already got it. I already gave it to you.
I did, but it was like 2 or 3 policies all put together, it was a jumble, so
There's a weed shop
Why?
in every
These are all
corner
separate.
anyways. I mean,
I didn't pass it out, except to one person because it was messed up.
Alright, so you're gonna pass that on to the ordinance committee?
we haven't had medical for years.
Okay. Last thing, trio. Okay, so last week, I thought I was completely losing my mind. I received an email saying that I had.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, that I was the administrator of trio. And I thought, I don't recall that conversation. I'm not sure when that took place. And I came in and I asked Carol and I said, she said, oh yeah, we voted on that and I asked these questions and I thought, I kept saying, okay. And I'm thinking, man, I don't remember doing that. I
I
must
got into
have,
that marijuana.
oh, I guess I did. I must have slept through the whole meeting. I don't recall any of this, but I'm still going along with it. I'm thinking because nobody else is saying anything. I'm like, Jesus, I really gotta stop paying attention. So then Tammy calls me the next day, I think. Yeah. She says, I don't remember voting on that. And I said, oh, thank God.
Well, we didn't vote on it.
Okay, so of course Deb's very upset about the administrator. Now, what exactly does the administrator of Trio do?
Oh, the roles. The administrator prohibits our secretary from processing the vouchers for one thing and keeps.
No, go ahead, because I gotta know, I gotta understand this, because I missed something somewhere.
No, you didn't, no. Well, you weren't at the training, that was one of the issues.
Oh, okay.
The roles were discussed at the training, and the importance of the administrator is that the administrator determines who has access and what roles each employee or official of the town has access to.
Okay.
One of the main problems that we've had is that the clerk, by virtue of our, not being,
Informed.
Corrected.
yeah, informed, had decided that it was in the clerk's best interest to be the trio administrator. Now, we had a real problem because the clerk decided that trio shouldn't be given to the assessor. Now, we fought that battle and won, and the assessor has access. We've not won the battle on having access for our secretary to process the vouchers because the clerk is the administrator of trio and we are not. And we should be, since we administer this town and should be responsible for it. And since I believe it would not be appropriate for the secretary to be administrator, and I believe it's not appropriate for the clerk to be administrator, it falls to the select board. This is the conversation we had, and that's how it ended up on your shoulders.
Yeah, well, okay, I just thought I was slept through a lot of stuff, and I was just really nervous about that.
Okay. Does that ring a bell?
Well, when we met last week and you talked about we had voted on it, and I didn't remember voting on any changing the administrator. We had talked about changing the passwords and assigning everyone new passwords and giving Sandy access, but not actually changing the administrator. So that's when I went back and looked through the minutes, and I'm like, I don't see it here, and so then I thought I was missing something.
So when you changing the administrator, how does that affect her on a day-to-day basis?
It wouldn't.
Okay.
As long as the roles are defined, allowing her to have access to the trio functionality that she needs to be able to run her reports and to be able to communicate with the state agencies that also use trio. It shouldn't have any adverse impact on her at all, except that it takes control away from her and it brings it back to where it should be.
So do you guys still get updates from Trio Management and everything
No.
on your emails?
No.
No? Oh, maybe I'll give them all to you.
Oh, thanks.
You're still getting them?
Yeah, I'm still getting them as administrator.
See, that's nice.
I think you guys better make some corrections to the system by the sounds.
Do you want them? I'll give them to you.
We're trying.
Just forward
So
it
it
to
was
them, you
the
get 'em.
select board.
I'm not
Chair.
even joking. They still keep going. I mean, they're still coming. I just ignore them. I haven't deleted them and just.
Yep. Okay.
So the answer is yes, we should have those reports.
Yeah, you should. Huh?
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
Okay.
And then you can. It also has why and all the problems that Trio themselves are having with any input of assessment that are being done at this time, and the updates and the concern that Trio has, you know, that they're not living up to their expectations.
I'm really confused now. So, Kevin, you were the administrator?
I guess, I don't know. I get them all.
And then-
I get them at least 2 to 3 times per week.
Deb
And
was the administrator.
also Debbie is on there.
Yeah, I'm sure it
And-
was sent to everybody, so if you guys clean that list up about who gets it, then that'll
Yeah.
take care of it.
Okay.
Debbie lets you.
So, that's gonna be long.
Are you trying to
Stir
stoke
their
the
pot.
fire here, Kathy?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, so that will take place when we do the passwords?
No, we have to send another email off to, what's his name here, Trio, and say, these are the roles that we want assigned to the individuals who are granted passwords, and we also need to get Kevin off the list.
Well, this is the new list of selectors or whatever,
Yeah. Okay.
subject to change.
So Joe Kelly needs to have more information. Right now, all he's got is the email that says, these are the individuals who should have Trio access, and this is who the administrator should be. But he needs to have more information than that.
he's gonna need basically Debbie to sign off that it's all right.
He better not have, he
She
told
should never
us,
sign
he
off.
I'm
told
just
us,
telling you.
he told us that he didn't need her to sign off, that
Oh.
we pay Trio,
Yeah,
and we're responsible for paying them, and if they wanna get paid anymore, they damn well better take her name off there or change the administrative role.
I'm gonna download all these emails on a stack and you guys can have them.
Just forward them all.
Yeah.
So should you actually make a formal vote like you thought you had done and assign that administrative position to the select board's chairman?
Not as far as I'm concerned, when you elected us as this is the administrators of this town, that gave us the responsibility to do that.
There are 5 administrators.
Well, why don't you just make the motion that you're going to move forward and contact
Right.
him to make
I
the
mean,
changes?
all I'm saying, Carol,
We did
is to
that.
have something on record
That was
of
done.
whose assignment that is.
I already did it.
Even if it's not gonna be Raquel, it's gonna be the chairperson, right? But, cause Raquel is not gonna be the
board
chairperson
entirely.
forever, right?
It's the entire
In the
board.
entirety
The
should
The
entire
be,
entire board would be the administrator.
Okay.
correct.
Not just one person.
They all get the same information, they all have the
Okay.
same input.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
But do you all, the only thing about that is, that sticks in my mind is that, okay, you got 5 people that are the administrators. So what if Carol decides she's gonna give some kind of powers to somebody that you guys don't wanna give it to? How's that work?
That would be brought up, should be brought up to the whole board. All administrators should make a decision on that, not one
It
person.
should be, but I could.
That's what I'm saying. I understand how it should be, Larry, but
I
how's it
know,
gonna be? That's what I'm asking.
I don't think anybody on this board would do that.
Not this board, but
It
we have to
should be-
protect future boards as well.
It should
Well, I
be,
know
it
that.
should
It
be
just seems
noted
convoluted
somewhere.
to me, that like, just having everybody the
Well, I think
administrator.
that's why
I
she
don't
had
want
said
to
one
tax it
person.
to start doing
It
that.
should be noted
Clearly it
somewhere
wasn't
and signed,
one
the-
Oh, no, that's what
You
I
know
said.
that.
Yeah.
only these
I
5
think one person.
administrators can,
But-
by
And you
unanimous
guys agree
vote,
to that one
assign
person.
Right.
confidential municipal codes to someone.
The way
See,
to do
that's
it.
the problem right now. Everybody is not, anybody could use Trio
Yeah.
instead of a unique password per individual, which is what I requested.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that if anybody logs in with
Right.
that
It's
password,
timestamped. You know
it's
who it is.
time-stamped, you know
Absolutely.
what records they accessed, you know what
Yeah.
applications they accessed, you know what changes they made, and it's all right there. And that was part of the training that we had. And that's why the request has gone in to say this is critical and this is what needs to be done. Now, what hasn't been done is the role definition. I mean, I feel strongly about it, but I'm only one person on this board, so,
What, you feel strongly that it should be the whole board and that
No.
everybody should have their own password, or?
no. No, I already wrote, I already wrote the email that said, you need to change the current passwords and they need to be specific to the individual.
Yeah, they should be.
But now there needs to be further clarification about roles assigned to the individuals. And Raquel doesn't like being assigned role of
No, that's
administrator.
fine. I was just, like I said, I just was confused. I thought there was a whole conversation that took place that I
It
just
doesn't
slept through.
necessarily have to be the chairman, it can be somebody
Right.
else on the
Whoever you
board.
decide who.
I mean, the chairman doesn't have to shoulder everything.
I don't mind doing it. It's just, I just wanted to make sure
Well,
I
don't
was
you want a life?
privy to the conversation. I have a life.
Well, the only thing about having the chairman
Feel
do it
right.
though is that there's always gonna be a chairman of the board. And as people move back and forth out of the selectmen's positions, then you'd have to go back and
You'd have to change it.
revisit that every time.
No
Which
matter-
maybe that's the way you wanna do it. I don't know.
Nobody, no matter who gets it on the board, there's gonna be turnover.
Right, but I'm saying if you assign it to a position though, then that position has it, no matter who's in that position.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
I don't think it has to be a position, it can just be a person.
Well, then you gotta revisit it every time that person gets, that's the only disadvantage to that, but it's up to you guys.
You don't- Regardless of how you do it, you're gonna end
Yeah,
up
but
with
it
this.
won't get done.
It won't get done, that's what I'm saying, it'll get convoluted,
That's
and
why
that,
it's
the
the
next
whole
board
board.
won't know they have to do that because they
All right,
weren't aware of
Sandy, what do
it.
you think?
Well, I agree, it needs to be here. And it needs to be something that's watched. As the board changes, as positions change, that needs to come up. I mean, no offense, Kevin.
No,
don't
it
take
does, I'm
You
agreeing
should
with
be-
you, it absolutely
It's been
does.
a while.
You're a perfect example.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
did-
And
mean,
she
should have spoke up
perfect
sooner.
example.
And you probably still have access to
Well,
it.
then maybe some
I
sort of list should be
probably
made
do,
as to what
but I
happens
don't wanna
every time
find
a
out.
board member changes.
Right, I mean, it's
And I
just,
mean, we've
it's,
never done it, but I'm,
it's the same thing, you know,
Sure,
when
that
you
point,
come
I
off the
guess.
board, you turn in your keys, password should be changed. You shouldn't have access to what you had before,
Absolutely.
so, you know, that
well, I
needs
don't
to be.
think the whole board should be able to go on and make changes on Trio anyway.
No,
No.
I don't either, I mean,
I don't want them.
no.
Like
no,
I said, I
but-
think I would be
Yeah.
happy with anybody else on
But
my
I-
computer
But
if
I
I was
think
sitting
that
over
any
there.
board member should be able to pull any report at will.
You think they should?
I do.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah, I
I do
do too. Why not?
I do
Which
too.
is
What's
why
gonna
we
happen?
have
Especially if
the
it's
board
time
has
stamped, you
5
have a password.
administrators.
What's
I
gonna
think
happen?
that they should be able to pull any report,
Now
but
we
they
make them
can't.
change.
Okay, so, I'm listening to everybody, and I think it's gonna get really confusing if there's 5 people with passwords
Right.
and 5 people going in. So what my suggestion is, there'll be one person with the password, but decisions are made amongst the board before that one person does something. You're always gonna have turnover, so no matter
Yeah,
who takes it, there's gonna be
always.
turnover.
Yeah.
So, that's my suggestion,
Now Sandy will have her own password, right?
yes.
Yep. Sandy will have
So
hers,
is that the way
Debbie
you
will
feel
have
throughout
hers,
the whole
Right.
board?
And
Allison
the
will
board,
have
right.
hers,
And the
And-
board will have theirs.
No, I don't
the
think so.
chair will have,
No,
I don't
every
either.
individual has to in my mind, every individual has to have a unique password.
I think so too.
I agree.
I mean, it's the same way, you go to a bank, all the tellers have their own teller
Login.
number.
right,
They don't all say, okay, we're all back here as tellers, we're all gonna win under the same thing.
It'll be a nightmare for you, I think, but if you,
What, to have individual ones?
no, you have to have it.
Oh,
You have to have
absolutely,
it,
I
yeah.
think so too.
And
Well,
you have to have one administrator, I think, but that's my,
I guess that's where I was going with that, is one
Right.
administrator.
But we
I
all
think
have
it should be
passwords.
the chair, should be the administrator.
That's fine. I'll let her know. So send your email.
Okay. I move that the board recognize the chair of the select board as the trio administrator for the town of Peru, effective immediately.
I'll
Oh.
second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Yeah, ooh.
Yeah. Thanks. All right.
Just send her a copy of the minutes.
She doesn't read them and nobody tells her anything.
Sorry.
That was
Anything,
nasty.
Tammy?
I apologize.
Larry, anything?
No.
No.
We're gonna, no, we're gonna bring stuff up, this is the budget meeting anyway.
Okay, so, yeah, just keep it till Monday. I've got nothing. Anything else? Nope. All right, public participation. 7:25, yes ma'am.
Can we have a list of the open seats that are going to be voted on in June and for what length of terms each seat is going to be?
That information will be available February 28th.
Thank you.
Or did you ask that question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Debbie's required to post it to advertise it.
We don't have a guesstimate
Well,
of what
we
the
know what
seats
they
are
are.
and how long they're going to
You
be.
got 2 board seats for 3 years,
2 board seats and a road commissioner.
Maybe
and
30.
fire chief, and two
And
school board seats.
Are the
Those
school
are
boards
always
each for
seated.
3
I
years?
think so, I think so.
No,
Maybe not,
No.
one is for 2 and,
I know you are. Stop it.
one is,
One's for 2 and one's for 3.
I have it written down.
Okay. But the
I-
fire
I
chief and the
was-
road commissioner are
I was
each
told
3.
not to give
Yes.
it out to anyone.
too bad. You
I
don't
have a-
work for her, you work for the select board.
The select
I was
board.
just letting you know.
Why is it such a freaking secret?
Exactly.
It's a big secret.
Well, it's not in my book.
Nobody can know what the boards
It's
are.
either, for the school board, it's 1 3-year and 1 2-year, I believe, because Bill should have been we didn't fill last year.
Right.
We appointed Bill.
Sandy's gonna look it up and she's gonna
So
say it out
should-
loud, right,
So it should
Sandy?
be 2 up for that term and then
So
another
who's
3
the
year.
other one that's
And
up
there's-
this year? Is
and
it
there's-
Angela or is it
No.
Debbie?
Debbie.
Debbie.
And then there's 2 3-year
She's
seats
not coming back.
on the select board, mine and Carol's.
Okay. And then the fire
School
chief and road
board.
commissioner, each 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
School board director, 1 position, 1-year term. School
1 year.
board director, 1 position, 2-year term.
Okay, so it's a 2-year and a 1 year,
Oh.
not a
Yeah.
3 and a 2, but a 2 and a
A 1
1.
and a 2.
Thank you.
The school board was 3 years.
It's,
They're all
1, 2, and
staggered.
3, and if Angela was reelected last year, she got the 3-year. I don't know, I have no idea.
That's what I was told.
Well, we won't tell a soul.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
tell anybody, it's all secret.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Could someone point out the file cabinet that I would look into, look at the town's personnel policies?
There is no file cabinet, and all policies are in a loose leaf binder, and they're all here, and you can look at it anytime you want.
Where are they?
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere?
Yeah.
Behind Larry.
You're not gonna find much about a personnel policy.
Well, I mean, I just wanna know, I have questions like, things about how many weeks vacation do people have? Can they carry over vacations? Do we give sick days? Can they carry sick days over?
Personnel policy's there, it
Right.
hasn't been revised since 2015, but it's there, it's in the book.
Well, it doesn't need to
And
be
we're
revised
working on
every
it.
year, but,
No,
I mean,
I just wanna see it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can see it.
I
That's
have some
all I'm
questions
asking.
on it
I
too.
just wanted to know where it was.
Yeah.
And I called the town clerk and she said it's in the
Select board office.
office.
Yeah, it's in a
I just wanna
binder.
know, yeah, I don't wanna dig through every filing cabinet.
No, it's in a binder.
Okay, thank you.
I know exactly where it is, right?
Right there, I see it.
Okay.
Well, one of the things
It's
that,
shrunk.
one of the things that came up at one of your meetings was about, paying for an employee's safety glasses, for example. So there's a policy, I read it, on uniforms and
Would
things
you
like
pass
that.
that to him, it's an extra copy.
And, so it doesn't say on that policy that that is, it's necessarily up to the, road commissioner to distribute that money in any way he wishes.
Right.
It spells out what that money goes for.
Right.
And it doesn't say anything about safety glasses. If you want a safety glass policy, you know, if you wanna pay for employee safety glasses, you should say you're gonna pay for employee safety
No,
glasses. It didn't mean, when I worked in the mill, it was a whole separate thing. My safety glasses, they gave us a pair a year, but my safety boots that I got every year were under a different policy, you know, it's just, it came up at a meeting and so I just had the question, well, someone said, well, it's up to the road commissioner to decide.
So we give him
No.
permission to use that money for his glass. It's part of his allowance.
So,
He
okay,
just say
He asked us about that.
so we don't need the $500 for the uniforms then and stuff, obviously, you know, are they required to wear certain things?
You know,
Like steel-toed boots, for example,
oh, yeah.
Steel toe boots, yeah.
so, and,
Other than that, I'm not sure what the requirements are, because when Carol and I first came on the board, they were getting uniforms from a company,
yeah,
and it was a
I heard
mess.
that story,
It was a mess.
right.
So that's how it went into a clothing allowance. But I really don't know if they're required anything other than the steel toe boots. Do you? Well,
They
hard
should-
hat.
Well, they should be
Depending on
wearing
what
hard
they're
hats,
doing.
safety vests.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of safety equipment the town is supposed to supply anyway,
Right.
by law.
But as far as a clothing allowance, I'm not sure exactly what the requirements are.
It was just, I just had the question, that's all, it wasn't, I'm not judging the policy, I'm just,
Let me tell you that the policy, as far as I'm concerned, policies are only as good as the paper they're written on, and they don't hold water, because they're not adhered to, they're not administered uniformly, and that's why I'm suggesting, for example, that the policy prohibiting tobacco and marijuana use not be a policy but an ordinance, because then it's the law of the town, and a board can't willy-nilly decide, oh, well, we're gonna modify it, or it doesn't
Well,
matter.
that's
and-
kind of my point, on the finance committee, I wanna know where the
An
$500 is
ordinance,
going.
but it has to go back to the.
That's my
people.
job, right?
Right.
I wanna know where each line item on the budget is going, so I need to understand it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm inquiring about the personnel policies.
No, that's
and things
fine,
like
that's
that.
what you're supposed to do.
And the
That's what I
policy
thought.
does spell out what you can buy with that.
It does.
It does
But
right
it
there.
doesn't limit it to that. The policy gives you a quantity, but it doesn't limit
So
it.
there you have
And
it.
it doesn't say, and no, and it, that it can't be used for anything else.
That's right, so
It's
you
So-
as
pretty
administrators
open-sided.
have decided that
Open.
safety glasses are okay.
So,
Right.
that's what I'm saying, a policy's
Yeah.
only as good as the paper it's written on, and it's only as good as any select board, any given select board decides that it is, and can modify it at will.
Right, and that's how stuff happens, that's how things get diluted,
And-
confused, and
We'll put it over there, cause it's more easily accessible, how's that?
And so you have just the one copy,
Of what?
the personnel policy.
No, I have another copy here, an extra copy though, I can.
No, I
choose.
mean, I'd like to make a copy, but I can't take it home with me to make it, right?
You have it
You
online?
can have it,
That's the whole.
There's
personnel
not much
policy?
online right now.
that's a
Maybe it is.
personnel policy.
Yeah. There's not a lot to
I
it.
thought the book was the
Is that
personnel.
the
This
one?
is yours, yeah, I just wanna ask you a question about
Thank
it.
you, I'll take that.
Go ahead.
I am reading vacation. 80 hours per year after 2 years, but less than 7 years. And I recently heard that the clerk has 3 weeks.
Because it was voted on by the town, and it's 3 weeks vacation and life insurance. She's the only one getting life insurance, and she gets 3 weeks, she's not. Part of what we're trying to get clarification on is whether or
Well,
not,
that article will be amended next year.
part,
You might not wanna do that.
I don't care.
No, just give us time.
We're in the process of working on the personnel policy.
and
Give
who
us
is
time.
covered by it and who is not covered by it.
They discussed it at the budget meeting last. You were here.
No, I won't come every week, this is too stressful.
I wouldn't miss it.
We can do it, you can do it. Come on.
I lived through several years of it.
Go
every
Well,
So it
no.
seems that the board
Yeah.
has already decided to
That's why she.
look into purchasing a new
What?
a new truck.
What?
We've gotten
Yeah.
quotes,
I'm reading through it, never touched it.
bank. We've asked the bank, yes, what the loans would look like, but we haven't said we're going to do it, it's gonna go out to vote.
I'm just asking, the board is seriously considering not repairing.
That has,
The-
yeah, I guess so.
A 22-year-old truck?
No, the 2011.
Oh, we're not talking about, the truck we were looking at was to replace the 22-year-old truck.
Because 2 weeks ago, during the other meeting, it was strongly suggested that that Brad was presenting replacing the 2011 because of the engine
No, 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 no.
No.
and the $10,000
He's gonna,
credit towards a new truck that they would give.
no, that one's gonna
No.
get fixed.
Yeah.
However, whether there's warranty issues or whatever, that's gotta get fixed. So this truck that would be replaced would be the one that's really, really old. So we can start getting on a cycle of getting new vehicles and.
Now,
Well, when it's replaced, I hope the driver isn't the road commissioner.
Me too. Or somebody else.
well, I'm just,
Got stuck twice this weekend. It's like, oh, right, three
I'm
inches
listening,
of
Kevin.
snow.
no, I was just curious because I heard that the total budget for the year is upwards of an estimated 200,000. But Brad's budget was slightly lower, but most of his major expenditures are separate articles. And would actually be his budget. So,
Well, it's interesting that you have a number because we haven't even done with it.
I know you're not done it.
We haven't even, we've just.
At this
plugged-
point,
well,
it's
right, we've just
estimated,
plugged numbers in, we
Yeah.
haven't even begun to make
at this
cuts and
point, it's
changes.
estimated that it's higher than 200,000 than last year's budget.
Should have saved a ton of money this year, shouldn't, I mean,
No,
With what? How?
we didn't buy a backhoe and have committed payments and.
Oh, in his budget, you mean?
Yeah, but some of the storms have just been long storms, so you still get just as much plowing in, just as much sand use.
Anyways.
Yes, you're right, they're separate articles, you're
Yeah.
correct.
So that actually increases reality. Reality, it increases his budget.
It also gives the
Drastically.
citizens more control over what's approved and disapproved.
Then
I haven't
he should
stuck
break
around.
down his budget into all separate line items, if you wanna be honest.
It's funny you say that because I actually thought about that.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to combine his budget, summer and winter, which has been suggested, into one budget, you oughta line item everything, to be honest with you. That's the only way you're gonna have control. I mean, I don't care how much he kicks and lines, the only way this town saves money, I mean, we're dickering about $4,500 on the code enforcement officer, which legitimately,
Yeah,
but that's pebbles in the sand.
You can't combine the
That's
winter and
pebbles in
summer
the sand. The
budget.
only way you're gonna make or save
Because the
a
winter
real
budget's
money
the only one he's allowed to go
is
over.
to stop this part-time 40-hour-a-week baloney.
Well, that is in the
And-
budget being stopped.
Maybe, the people that he hired should be a little bit more responsible than giving each other rides in the bucket of the old backhoe just because they want to, or maybe meeting at the end of certain streets because they're bored and partaking in something that maybe shouldn't be done, and maybe they'll stay on the road. And maybe they won't make stupid mistakes like driving through a salt shed door. Save some real money.
I'd ask Brad this, if he was here, but any indication on the internationals, engine damage on the international?
I haven't heard, if you talk about the one that's cracked.
Well,
just talking
head-
about-
see, he's saying it's cracked, but he hasn't,
He doesn't know for sure.
he does not know
He hasn't
that,
been
could be a
cleared.
head gasket,
No, no.
right, you know?
Yeah,
Which
no,
is a
I
lot
don't-
different than a cracked light, so
I
I'm
haven't
just
heard any more
curious
about it.
whether,
Not a word.
so we don't have an assessment done on that truck yet.
You can't put the truck down this time of year to do that.
Okay, so that's gonna
Keep-
wait,
As long as it's not going, it's going in the exhaust right now, they know that. It's not leaking into the engine. If it starts leaking into the engine, getting into oil, then they're not gonna have a choice.
Right.
Then they're gonna have to put it down to see what is the problem.
right,
So
So
right
they
now, it's going out the exhaust.
Yeah,
They're using
Oh,
it.
yeah,
You do
yeah.
know
They're
that.
using
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
yeah.
You do know that, 'cause
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
gonna ask that.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask the
They are
same
doing
thing, what
it.
happened to
They
it?
haven't really got a choice right now.
right.
Yeah, they
No,
are.
I
getting-
that was
understand.
happening with
I didn't
John.
know if they,
Because
That's
to
some
find
way.
out all these years he had smoked.
You won't
gas
know
and
till you
everything
tell the
else,
head
and it
count.
was a sensor, that was $200.
Yeah, it's a big job.
Yeah.
it's not that big, everything sounds like a big job, people that do that every day, that ain't a big job.
It's a big job because you can't afford to have that truck.
No, I
down to get
understand
it
that.
snowstorm. That's the thing. You're not gonna do it in a day.
No,
Well, it's a
I-
big job because we don't have a mechanic.
yeah. No, I understand what you mean, it's more than taking it up and having
The
somebody
whole
look at it.
idea
It
of
needs to be in
hiring
there
the
for a
third
few
person
days
was
and-
supposed to be a mechanic
What
all
about
the
the fourth, the
time,
fifth, the sixth?
not
the
going
seventh?
out driving around.
Alright, anybody else? Go ahead.
While we're on the road, do you know that if Brad actually bought the case backhoe yet? Has he bought it?
Not gonna buy the
Not gonna
case.
get the
He's not going
case.
with the case?
Nope.
2 weeks ago, he said you sold them.
That's because last week he came in and he said that Case changed the terms of the agreement after he made the verbal agreement, and they said that they wouldn't give us 0 interest rate. And he said that they violated the terms of the agreement, and so it was gonna be
John Deere.
John Deere.
And John Deere
I
did
thought
go
he had it
0%.
right.
They did.
He
Yeah.
did,
Got a quote, I got the quote.
I thought
He
I did
did.
too.
as of January 31st, the Case contract is canceled. Because they negated the agreement by,
Could've been a date.
withdrawing the 0 interest.
So when did the board vote to change to buy the John Deere instead of?
We
the-
didn't
We didn't
vote to buy the Case, we just voted to authorize
Either one.
either one.
I think
Isn't
JD
it more
is
money
better anyway.
for the John Deere?
possibility.
He must be able to keep it under the budget.
It
or he
was-
wouldn't be doing it.
The John
Good
Deere
thing
was
that's-
a
That was
little
my
bit
first
more
question, is it gonna stay in the amount
warranty.
allotted?
I thought it was 3,300 more for that.
Yeah, I thought you said it's
Well, he
three.
give, maybe he's taking it out of his pocket for
In
that
a
money
year
he
less
gets
than
every
warranty.
week
For
for
his
gas.
mileage, for his.
All right, anybody else? Gail?
Well, Rick was happy John Deere anyway.
That's right.
What
Do
he
the
wanted.
town employees on their insurance, do they have a vision plan? Is that part of their insurance? Is that where their glass,
I
their,
don't think so.
their,
I don't think so, Tammy, that would be a question.
prescription glasses could come from?
No,
They do not have vision.
no.
Dental?
Oh, yeah.
No.
They don't have
No.
dental? No.
They don't have life either. Only the clerk does.
$9 a month.
Yep. I
I've
see
been
that on
wondering-
the thing every.
Me too,
yeah.
I've been wondering what that was, $9 a month. Is the library requesting another $1,500 this year?
Yeah.
Can I have a copy of Debbie's memo, please?
I've got it right there.
And why is Vera coming back?
She's covering the office when they're both gone to a class.
Cause we heard at the budget meeting that she wasn't coming anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So is she still making the big money?
You said
I have no idea what she's paying her.
ever.
That comes out of her
You
budget.
know what it used to be, it was $18 an hour, so it's probably more than that now, she needs a raise, 2.5%.
Jeez, get out of town.
I know, do we afford to close the town office one day a week?
Nothing wrong with that,
I was gonna say,
Byron's open 2 days a week.
why isn't it just close the office?
For the day.
Because somebody will bitch.
Not for something like that,
Go ahead,
if it's put out in the paper and they know it's
Oh,
gonna
well,
close.
two
If it was every week,
No.
they probably would, but not.
And it, no offense to Sandy or anything, but putting her hours to 34 hours a week, wouldn't that consider her full-time and
35.
35 hours a week?
Yeah, that's why it's
I
34.
thought it was 32, did they raise
So
it?
did I heard 32 here.
that's what
Did the state not, did the state raise it? Cause I was
It's not up
assuming
to
it was
the
32
state.
hours.
It's not up to, the state
No, but
doesn't set the standard for
voted on.
full-time.
It was voted on by the,
I guess that could be,
Yeah,
32, right?
I'm just,
Yeah,
you know,
I thought so.
anyway, and did any of the board members
They're
know?
calling that though, like every week.
I'd love to be able to answer a question, but I can't hear you.
Oh, do any of the board members know why one of the tires fell off our plow truck there, 4 weeks ago?
First I've heard of that.
Yes, I have.
That would be neat to know. Go over the scanner.
Yeah.
Rick Vaughn told him to pull over right away when it's safe to do so. So I didn't know if, because to be honest with you, you're supposed to check those brakes to make sure that the brakes work and that, you know, lug nuts are tight before you start driving, even to do any massive amounts of plowing or work. I mean, Larry, you know that, but you're
Well,
supposed to just take a
that
quick
law
trip
has
around.
changed. I talked to a oil truck driver the other day, they got these things on the wheels now, by law, they can see if the lug nuts closed. They see they have loosened up, they cannot touch it, they have to call the mechanics, they have to come in, the drivers can't touch that stuff anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
So who's our mechanic that would tighten down those wheels?
Well, hold on.
No, I'm asking, really.
I can tell you that, if you have a Class B license, I wrote the checklist for Region 9 2 years ago, on the Class B trucks there, I wrote it. And, I went by what the state requires, DOT requires, but you were supposed to with a Class B license, and don't get me wrong, this does not happen in the industry everywhere, but what you're supposed to do is do your rounds around that truck. You have a checklist, it's like an airplane checklist, and you.
This is why I asked the oil truck driver, and apparently it's Fabian, they do not allow their drivers to touch anything on that truck.
Doesn't
I
mean you
think
have
it's
to
their
touch it.
policy.
Nothing on my checklist had any, there's no tools involved or anything, it's just a walk around checklist. It's
Yeah.
like a pilot
See,
has on an
this is
airplane.
like, it looks like a hand on
It's
the
an
block,
inspection,
they got these plastic things that, like an arrow, they all point the same
Well,
way
yeah, I can believe it.
on their lug nuts, and if the lug, if one of them happens to turn off, alright, that lug nut is loose, it's moved, so they got me checked.
That's because of the hazmat.
That is because of
Scenario.
that tire that come off and killed that state trooper on the last year, that's why that is in place.
Yeah, wow.
That's what
Guess
happened.
what?
gonna
We
happen
lost the
here.
time.
Good, Ken. Okay,
So I'm just wondering, if
Again-
you could just find out if it was a broken part, or if it was just,
yeah, I haven't heard
Operator
anything about it,
negligence or
so,
what?
yeah. Again, nothing against Sandy or anything, but on her hours limited to 32?
4.
34. I thought the vote that the town did said 32. Then you can't increase it without it going back to vote.
Unless part of the hours are supporting either the planning board or the assessor.
Did you say that in the article?
I don't believe that.
No,
no, I don't believe that.
I don't believe that.
But
And if you increase it, okay, is that what you guys are talking about, that it doesn't make her full-time? Correct. Still,
So
you can't do it
When you
without
said
going back to
34
people.
hours, you were talking about time she was getting paid for doing the, planning board's minutes and stuff, right?
Debbie does
assessor-
that.
the assessor-
assessing
the
work.
assessing work.
Yes,
Not
that's it.
planning board, she doesn't do planning board. No, Debbie does that, don't you ever forget it.
Oh, God.
For now,
So, okay.
Karen?
So when that assessor went around to the properties, did she take a current picture of each property?
Shirley Bartlett,
No.
she
Supposed to.
hired someone who was allegedly did it, but none of them were posted in Trio.
Yeah, cause I was gonna say, this is a really ancient picture of my property.
Yeah, probably 2000.
I think it was even before that.
Yeah, it was like
That's the old
90
time
Oh,
card,
yeah,
I mean, that's
it
the old
was.
property
It's like
card.
the soda parked in the driveway.
that's a good one.
And the other thing is,
What are you talking about? Your trailer looks brand new.
she's still
Make a
got,
motion.
stuff on the property card that is no longer there.
Well,
That might be that
that's the old,
six.
that's the property card, but if you guys don't tell them that there's nothing there, then
Well, if they come around, can't they see it?
They're doing the assessor.
the assessor doesn't go to every property every year.
Right,
I thought you said that she did go to the property.
on the, yeah, reevaluation. it's supposed to,
Shirley
yeah.
Shirley Bartlett was supposed to, but she did
That's
not,
not
she
the
didn't go
area.
anywhere.
Karen, when she did the rebound, your mother was still living there.
So this isn't when Shirley Bartlett?
No.
No.
So anyway, mine's gotta be corrected because these buildings are not even there.
It's up to you to tell the town that the buildings have been taken down.
She has
Or
an
a pool has
updated
been
one from
taken
when
out or something like that.
Alright, Tammy has raised that the 20 minutes of participation should be over, so make your motion.
I make a motion to come out of participation.
I'll second that. All in favor? I make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Kind of a lot.
Maybe you could go.
Try.